Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're going to break down a massive, massive shift happening right now. We're looking at the Indo Pacific from 2025 to 2026. And look, I just need to tell you right up front that era of peaceful global trade as we all know it, yeah, it is officially over. We're entering a completely new and honestly a fiercely competitive global order.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Has free trade ended? It's a pretty heavy question, right? But based on all the data and the research we're analyzing today, the answer is a resounding yes, at least, in the traditional sense. Trade isn't just about optimizing supply chains to make a quick buck anymore. No way. Today, controlling global commerce, that has literally become a matter of absolute national survival.
Section 1, the new Indo Pacific Order. Let's look at the strategic realignment. So, as we approach the highly anticipated 2026 diplomatic summit between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, we really need to wrap our heads around a core concept driving this whole new order, and that's geoeconomics. Basically, this is the use of economic tools, we're talking supply chains, cutting-edge tech, energy resources, to achieve geopolitical and national defense goals. And because of this massive shift, the global trade system has actually splintered. Instead of this one big, unified global market, we now have three totally distinct trade regimes, and they are largely driven by the competing geopolitical priorities of the United States and China. And this brilliantly illustrates how this plays out on the ground. Let's look at how China's Global Development Initiative compares directly with the G7's Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, which is championed by the US. Now, both of these superpowers are aggressively using infrastructure as a strategic weapon, but their playbooks are completely different. China focuses on this high-speed, state-backed implementation of smaller capacity programs, really aiming to build alignment across the global south. The G7, on the other hand, well, they're targeting a massive $600 billion transparent clean energy projects. Those rely heavily on private capital and strict standards, all aimed at de-risking and countering technological dominance. Section 2, 2026 Global Energy Crisis. Let's talk about the 2026 shock. When a fragile global system faces a massive external shock, things break down incredibly fast. Let's walk through this truly terrifying timeline from early 2026. In late February, we saw a full-scale military escalation between the US, Israel, and Iran. Fast forward to late March, and Houthi maritime attacks had intensified significantly. And then, the absolute breaking point. April 19th, 2026, Iran effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz. That move blocked a staggering 20 million barrels of oil and liquefied natural gas every single day. The International Energy Agency literally called this the most devastating supply disruption in modern history. So the crucial point here is the immediate fallout. A shocking 140% spike in Asian LNG spot prices, practically overnight. I mean, think about it. When 20% of the world's seaborne crude and LNG is just suddenly blocked, the economic heart of the Indo-Pacific, which, remember, relies incredibly heavily on energy imports, it goes into immediate red alert crisis mode. But to truly grasp this, we have to look way beyond just the abstract geopolitics and see the devastating human stakes. Over in South Asia, this energy crisis translated directly into rolling blackouts and mandatory 4-day work weeks. Because, get this, a third of the world's fertilizer transits right through the Strait of Hormuz. So global fertilizer prices skyrocketed, which ended up pushing an estimated 9.5 million additional people in Asia into acute food insecurity. And in the Pacific, nations like Tuvalu and the Marshall Islands literally had to declare economic states of emergency just to keep their heads above water. Moving on to Section 3, the scramble for tech supply chains. The global scramble. So, in response to these terrifying vulnerabilities, countries are basically fighting back by weaponizing their own resources and tech. Take Vietnam's absolutely brilliant response, for example. It's a strategy they codified as C equals SAT plus 1. Let's break that down, because it's fascinating. C is for chip, meaning focusing on the core component itself. S stands for specialized, targeting specific integrated circuits. E is for electronics, really building up their foundational base. T is for talent, where they're actively developing 7,000 high-skilled engineers. And that plus 1? That is all about positioning themselves as the safe, reliable China plus 1 alternative for foreign investors. This laser-focused formula actually helped Vietnam jump from doing low-end assembly to securing over $14.2 billion in foreign direct investment for semiconductor fabrication. Just incredible. And hey, it is not just about silicon chips. $47.36 billion. Let that massive number sink in. That is the targeted capital injection for a groundbreaking new alliance between Indonesia and the Philippines. They've created this nickel megacorridor alliance. And the goal is to essentially monopolize the global supply of raw materials needed for electric vehicle batteries, right smack along the equator. Now, what's really interesting about this is that despite that massive investment, this monopoly is far from a sure thing. Indonesia actually faces some severe structural risks to their entire business model. First off, environmental, social, and governance compliance pressures are seriously mounting, specifically around deforestation and carbon emissions. On top of that, the advanced high-pressure acid leach processing they need, the costs for that are soaring, adding up to $3,000 extra per ton just because of sulfur prices. But maybe the biggest threat of all, automakers are actively pivoting. They're substituting with cheaper, nickel-free LFP batteries to bypass these exact costs. So it's a massive, high-stakes gamble. Section 4. The rise of minilateral architecture. The rise of new pacts. As these economic strategies get more aggressive, the region's security architecture is rapidly adapting to keep up. We're seeing conventional slow multilateralism, like the WTO, for instance, kind of getting left behind. That old model is consensus-based, it's slow, and it's really failing to stop these tariff wars. But on the flip side, we have the rise of minilateralism. Think of exclusive groups like AUKUS or the Quad. These are tight, like-minded coalitions. They are built for rapid technological integration, and most importantly, they completely bypass that massive bureaucratic red tape so they can execute decisions at lightning speed.
An absolutely perfect example of this is AUKUS, which is built on two main pillars. Pillar 1 is a staggering $368 billion commitment over 30 years to supply Australia with nuclear-powered submarines. I mean, wow. But Pillar 2 is where the really immediate integration is happening. That focuses on sharing 6 advanced tech areas. We're talking AI, autonomous warfare, hypersonics, cybersecurity, the whole 9 yards. And to make this happen, these countries are aggressively tearing down long-standing weapons export barriers, like ITAR in the US, allowing defense contractors to share critical tech basically overnight.
We're also seeing this radical shift play out in the East China Sea trilateral between the US, Japan, and the Philippines. They're shifting away from just doing occasional military drills to establishing a permanent sea denial posture right there in the first island chain. And paired with this is huge. Japanese troops deployed to the Philippines. But it's not just a military play. It is heavily backed by geoeconomic investments through the Luzon Economic Corridor. They are essentially fusing military presence with massive infrastructure projects to throw up a shield against economic coercion. Moving to Section 5, regional hedging strategies. Let's look at how middle powers are navigating this. So, you might be wondering, how do middle powers actually survive all of this? How do they navigate being caught right between Washington's heavy security demands and Beijing's deep infrastructure pockets? Well, it's all about hedging. Just look at the diplomatic fallout of the 2026 Iran war crisis. India, despite its ambitions to really lead the global south with its Act East policy, found its hands kind of tied. Their reluctance to alienate Israel, combined with some complex domestic politics, ultimately hindered their ability to mediate. But objectively speaking, Pakistan surprisingly stepped up. Pakistan successfully brokered a crucial 2-week ceasefire between the US-Israel coalition and Iran, which significantly elevated its standing on the global diplomatic stage. Let's move along and see how this builds into broader national strategies. Vietnam is giving a total masterclass right now in what they call bamboo diplomacy. It's ruthlessly practical balancing. On one hand, they successfully secured the US as a partner for semiconductor friendshoring, but simultaneously they turned around and signed 32 different bilateral agreements with Beijing to ensure their manufacturing lifelines stay wide open. They essentially bend with the geopolitical winds like fenceless bamboo without ever letting either side build a restrictive wall around them. And then we have Indonesia. Under President Prabowo Subianto, they are taking a highly transactional approach. It's fascinating. They officially pursued affiliation with the BRICS economic bloc, obviously leaning toward the East, yet at the exact same time, they acted as a super active delegate in the U.S. administration's Global Board of Peace initiative. Talk about playing both sides, right? It's a very calculated strategy, leveraging their non-aligned status to essentially force renegotiations for much better reciprocal trade deals all around. Section 6. The future of state sovereignty, a fundamental shift. All of these different strategies we've looked at today, they all point toward one fundamental redefinition of power. As the research notes, and I want to quote this directly, the region has ended the illusion of a post-Cold War cooperative liberal order. Global trade integration is now cannibalized to submit to national security prerequisites. Honestly, just let that sink in for a second. The era where pure economic efficiency and the absolute lowest cost supply chains drove the world, that era is dead. Everything now is viewed entirely through the lens of national defense. So, what does this all mean? It means the very definition of sovereignty has completely evolved. It's no longer just about the size of your military or your missile stockpiles. True power in 2026 requires real logistical independence over critical raw minerals. It requires dominating global space communication bandwidth. It's about having the diplomatic agility to step in and mediate multilateral crises when the old global institutions fail us. And crucially, it's having the technocratic courage to adapt your manufacturing ecosystems so they can actually survive unilateral embargoes.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this one thought to consider. In this completely new, fractured geoeconomic battlefield, a world where trade is literally a weapon and supply chains are the new front lines, how will your country survive? Thank you so much for exploring this massive shift with us today. Keep watching, keep learning, and stay curious.